At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.
Tonight, watch the special live edition of American Black Journal, Closing the Wealth Gap, Creating Prosperity in Communities of Color. Moderated by John Hope Bryant, the national founder and CEO of Operation Hope. This special will explore a number of issues related to wealth inequalities in the U.S.
Welcome to Closing the Wealth Gap. I'm John Hope Bryant, your host for this special live program. Tonight, we will address one of the most hotly debated and critical issues facing America today, building wealth in communities of colors. Whether you're a homeowner or a small business owner, these issues are relevant to you. We're going to dive deeply into these issues and give you a little background about African Americans and banking just before the end of the Civil War.
The formation of the Freedman Savings and Trust Company, or the Freedman's Bank, was a bold and courageous idea for its time. January 1865, the end of the Civil War was imminent. A group of white Northern abolitionists and business leaders met in New York to explore the formation of a permanent bank to help African American Civil War soldiers and the African American community. For the first time in their lives, newly emancipated men and women needed a safe place to deposit their money. On February 13, 1865, a bill to incorporate the Freedman Savings and Trust Company was brought before Congress. A few weeks later, President Abraham Lincoln signed the bill into law. The bank was critical to help create opportunity for African Americans to build assets. It created a sense of protection for their money and welcomed them into the financial mainstream. Freedman's Bank was a symbol of a stronger economic future for emancipated men and women at a key turning point in American history. 37 branch offices in 17 states and the District of Columbia were opened. In 1870, the bank's headquarters moved from New York to Washington, D.C. Most bank depositors were low-wage earners, butlers, maids, cooks, janitors, and soldiers. But African American churches, schools, and other groups also put their money in the bank. Depositors also included individuals who had been free long before emancipation, such as physicians, attorneys, and notables like Frederick Douglass, Captain O.S.B. Wall, and many others. It is estimated that over the 9-year life of the bank, approximately 100,000 individuals and institutions opened accounts with bank deposits totaling more than $57 million. That is equivalent to $115 billion today, based on its relative share of gross domestic product. During its first 5 years, Freedman's operated as a well-functioning bank. However, an amendment to the bank's charter led to risky asset investments. This, along with a lack of proper oversight, led to fraud, mismanagement, and abuse. In 1874, Frederick Douglass was recruited to serve as the bank's president. He believed that the failing bank could be saved, and even invested his own money to revive it. But these efforts came too late. Freedman's Bank closed its doors on the 29th of June, 1874. When it failed, depositors lost their savings. About half eventually received some of their money back. Others received nothing. It was a bitter conclusion to such a promising venture. Despite its tragic end, the Freedman's Bank represented the dreams for equality and inclusion in America's economic mainstream. Its legacy must be our continued pursuit for prosperity for every American.
You know, to watch that video is to watch a glimpse of history. But what if I told you that the 3 months where this happened, the 3 months of 1865, was the most remarkable 3 months of public policy in American history? That what Lincoln did was extraordinary. Before that, you had Field Action 15. My friend Gail knows much about this. That was what you call 40 acres and a mule. That was January. And then February comes this bank to teach free slaves about money. Lincoln thought that you couldn't really be free with physical freedom, that you had to have what I call the 21st century version of freedom, which is self-determination, to do for yourself. You can't do that without understanding the language of money. He wanted to introduce you to the free enterprise system and help to set you free. You had savings and access to capital, and then you had land to finance. It would have completely transformed lives for African Americans. Lincoln was killed a month later, April 1865. Frederick Douglass took over the bank. We know him as an abolitionist. He was a businessman. Why do I know that? He put $10,000 of his own money in this bank. That's $20 million today. You don't do that when you're broke. And so he was a businessman who happened to be also passionate about the abolitionist movement. And unfortunately, the bank was gamed, as you heard and saw in the video. And I think that Ferguson today, Ferguson, Missouri, is the failure of the Freedmen's Bank. Because it's really not the black Ferguson, it's the broke Ferguson. It's the 500 credit score community Ferguson. It's a no jobs Ferguson. And that's the issue in parts of Detroit. That's the issue in parts of the south side of Chicago. That's the issue of Baltimore with the rioting. That's the issue of South Central LA in 1992. It's a 150-year legacy of not getting the memo. Not getting the memo on money. And we have some folks here that are going to help to really underscore and illustrate both where this gap came from but where we're going. I will tell you that this legacy and this story is not over. My work at Operation Hope is trying to finish what Frederick Douglass and Lincoln created with the Freedmen's Bank, with Hope Inside. We recently worked with Secretary of the Treasury to rename the Freedmen's Bank building across from the White House, which happened last month. So this is living history. We have on Skype, we're going to have Dennis Kimbro, who's a best-selling author, my friend, a lecturer and professor. We have my friend Gail Perry Mason, Senior Director of Investment from Oppenheimer Funds, but that doesn't tell you all about Gail. You should search on the internet all these folks because they are bad brothers and bad sisters. For all of you need translation, that means they're great people. We have Joni Thrower, who is a general counsel and managing partner at Gem Jomar, which owns McDonald's. And she started out really at a very modest level. She'll tell you about her story. And now she is what we call a big baller and a shot caller. She's an owner. We have Michael Daniels, who is got an incredible career in business and finance, and we will hear from him as well. We want to thank Roland Martin for trying to be here, but the weather really prevented him from being here with us. So let's open up this conversation, because this really is living history. Gail, what do you think? I sort of challenged you a little bit on this Freedmen's Bank thing. What do you think? I pretty said something provocative about connecting that to Ferguson, et cetera, today. What do you think?
No, first of all, I want to thank you for what you're doing in renaming the bank in D.C. First of all, I want to thank you for what you're doing.
Thanks, Secretary Jack Lew, but thank you.
Okay, well, no. Well, thank you for your movement, especially your movement in Detroit. And I want to say, you're right, it's still happening today. It's still happening all over today. It's still happening in Detroit. I know what's going on in Detroit. A lot of us know we all know what's going on in Detroit. And it is about the credit scores. It is about, what we do. We do need hope. I mean, that's exactly what we need. When it comes to financial literacy, when it comes to building wealth, it starts with education first. It starts with, we didn't have the $10,000 to put in the bank. That would be $20 million today. We'll say we don't have it, but there's ways that our spending power is so high, like $1.2 trillion for African Americans. But our net worth has not grown.
Right.
It says since 1872, I believe, our net worth hasn't grown.
Yeah, and our story really could be the economic Jewish story if we had gotten this memo on money and free enterprise.
But we didn't get the memo.
We did not get the memo.
We didn't get the memo.
That would be a $100 billion bank today, by the way, making it one of the top 25 in the nation. Joni, I want to come back to you later because of your entrepreneurial focus with McDonald's. Mike, what do you think about this Freedmen's Bank story?
It's what our real problems are today. We still do not understand how to manage our money. It's basically we have to live within your means, and it requires, that 1 trillion, 7 trillion we talked about, being a consumer-oriented society. We have to quit spending and be a saving and ownership-oriented society.
So if you don't know, Mike's from Ameriprise, by the way. So what are we saying? Well, what am I saying? Let me speak for myself. I think that nothing changes your life more than God or love than moving your credit score 120 points. And if you look at communities we care about, they're all 500 credit score communities.
Yes.
They're not black communities. They're not Latino communities. Whether you're black, white, red, brown, or yellow, you want to see some more green. So there are 500 credit score communities, rural or urban, black or white. But of course, we're concerned now on this community that didn't get the memo, the black community, and how we can set our communities free. So that's the focus tonight. That's what we're going to be setting up this whole evening is, yes, the history of the Freedmen's Bank, but what is our unfinished business? And if we've been experts in civil rights, what do we say about civil rights? I see you as a civil rights leader. All right, we'll be back. We want to continue this discussion on where do we go from here, which was Dr. King's last book. And Dr. King, by the way, was the first time we picked up the mantle of what I call civil rights, what Lincoln and Frederick Douglass had teed up in 1865 and 1968. And then Dr. King was killed April 1968, the same month as Lincoln, April, 100 years later. The fact that a pastor, Reverend Dr. King, and another pastor, Ambassador Andrew Young, took up the mantle of money is both inspiring and distressing. So is it surprising that we are where we are today? I mean, it's not like, what I'd argue is that we're not dumb or we're not stupid. We're actually brilliant.
Absolutely.
It's what we don't know that we don't know that's killing us. I mean, we never got the memo. How did you get the memo, Joni? I mean, I know a little bit about your story, but I think the audience needs to hear your inspiring story on your evolution and your mentorship in your family to become an entrepreneur. It didn't just happen.
No, it did not just happen. And the beauty about what happened in my family is that it started with my parents. And Jim and Marla, they were introduced to McDonald franchising by Dr. Bill Picard over almost 30 years ago. And we got our first restaurant at Mack and I-75 in the city of Detroit. And I remember at the time, I was 12. Mm-hmm. So immediately, my parents wanted I have 3 other siblings. We all worked in the business, and they made certain, even at the age of 12, my younger brother was 10, and my baby sister was 2. I had an older brother that was 22. And they made certain that we understood the business and we understood what it meant to have a business. So my grade school was maybe 1.5 miles away from the restaurant. After school, we come to the restaurant, sit in the lobby, do our homework. After that, we would wipe the tables. So my parents made certain to let us know that we understood the value of hard work. They didn't want to give us anything. So that being said, I worked my way kind of through the business.
It was to teach a woman how to fish family.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
We're not giving you anything
Absolutely.
and work for it, right?
Absolutely. Worked my way through the business, and once I graduated from college, I was the one child that decided to do something different, and I went off to law school, where my siblings, they continue into the family business, and all of them are owners now. I went off to law school, graduated from Emory University in Atlanta, came back, and I worked for one of the largest law firms here in Detroit and here in Michigan, Miller Canfield, and I worked in their banking department. And for 10 years, I worked on financial matters and financial deals, while at the same time still handling all the legal matters for my family's business. So my path was a little bit different. Maybe about 3 years ago is when I came into the business full time. And what made it easier for me is that McDonald's has a next generation program that makes it easier for either the spouse of a current operator or the children of current operators to have an easier way into the business. And so the capital requirements are much different than someone who is coming off the street to get into the business.
Now, everybody watching, you just got not only a history lesson, you got a how to start a franchise lesson, because this is not somebody talking about it. This is somebody who's doing it, and she looks like you. And, well, she's green, but she's also black, color U.S. currency. But, you know, high self-esteem, high confidence. But this doesn't just happen. It's role modeling, people. People are role modeling. And so if all you see growing up in a neighborhood as a rap star, an athlete, or a drug dealer, why is anybody surprised that's what a kid wants to be? But when you grow up in a family like this, and you end up wearing a business suit and being a businesswoman, and this will probably be the decade of the woman. We're going to talk about that before we finish. But black women are incredible business forces. They're forces of nature. You are a living shero.
Thank you.
And one of our guests coming up, he's going to talk about the wealth choice, is my friend Dr. Dennis Kimbro. But at the moment, we're going to wrap. We'll be back. So we have a special opportunity. My friend, my brother from another mother, you know him as Dr. Dennis Kimbro, is an author of many, many books. The Wealth Choice being one of them. I think I'm actually in it, although I'm the broke dude in the book. He knows real wealth. But he joins us, I believe, from Atlanta, Georgia. He's a professor and author, and really an advocate for what I increasingly call civil rights. Dr. Dennis Kimbro, my friend, welcome. And you just saw and heard a great example, living example of wealth creation. What do you think about what we've been talking about tonight? And yes, the legacy of black history and the legacy of the Freedman's Bank. But how does this tie into where we're going?
Well, you know, John, first of all, thank you very much for allowing me to be a part of this. You know, in 1955, when Dr. King led the Montgomery bus boycott, there were only 5 black millionaires in the United States. I was privy enough to interview 4 of the 5, and I shared their story in Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice. Well, today you got about 35,000 black millionaires and 6 black billionaires. But John, here's the rub. When you look at our disposable income and you look at the opportunities that avail us day in and day out, instead of producing 35,000 millionaires, we should produce no less than 300,000 millionaires. And it starts just like the profile that she suggested. The quickest way to wealth, and I guess the greatest advantage we have, is the ability to change our mind. In 1897, our most prolific scholar, W.B. Du Bois, wrote that book that you're familiar with called The Negro in Business.
Yes.
Basically, that's the only book that we need. You go and read the first 30 pages of that book. And as a race, it's easy for me to say now, you mentioned not getting the memo. We took that book and we put it on a shelf, and for all practical purposes, we didn't even open it up. But if you do get a copy of it and you read the first 30 pages of that book, Du Bois makes 2 profound statements. He says, number 1, the man or woman who won't control his or her finances won't control anything else. And here we are as a race, the 16th wealthiest country on the face of the earth. You have 177 countries that belong to the United Nations, and in terms of wealth, in terms of GDP, in terms of disposable income and buying power, we're number 16. Now, when he said won't control anything else, he's not talking about your finances. What he was talking about, life in general. If you don't care about the money that's in your pocket, what do you care about black high school dropout rates? If you don't care about the money that's in your pocket, what do you care about black on black crime? And then the other profound statement, he says, nothing positive will ever occur in a community that fails to circulate its dollars.
That's right.
Now, John, he said that in 1897.
Yep.
Here we are, 115, 116 years later,
Yep.
and we're still dealing with these same issues. What I found in my 7 years research of tracking these black millionaires down an over a 7-year period, I interacted with minimum 1,000 Black millionaires. Number one at the hit parade, the number one core competency and value is that prosperity begins in the mind and ends in the purse. Until we change our mindset concerning wealth, I'm afraid, I'm dearly disposed that nothing will really occur.
So you hit it right on the mark. What if I told you that there's a difference between being broke and being poor? That being broke was economic, but being poor is a disabling frame of mind and a depressed condition of your spirit, and you must vow never to be poor again. And the issue is that we're not broke, but that we're poor. And that the self-esteem thing is really important. In fact, capital comes from the Latin root word capitas. It's knowledge in the head. It has nothing to do with money. Ambassador Andrew Young said to live in a system of free enterprise and not to understand the rules of free enterprise must be the definition of slavery. Dr. Kimbro, you've teed this thing up. I'm going to go just quickly to our panelists, Michael, Gail, Joni. This issue of self-esteem, of confidence. Can you go to work yourselves and get anything done without confidence, without capital starting inside of you? Is that possible? What do you think about that?
No, you can't. But one of the biggest problems that we have is that, like you said, we don't understand the rules that we're working with. And because we don't understand the rules, we're playing by the game by a wrong set of rules. One of the things that seems to dishearten me is that we're a consumer society and we get consumed by every other community. They come and sell us everything, and in return, we don't get to circulate dollars in our community. You know, in certain ethnic groups, the Chinese group, dollar circulates 30 days. In the Jewish community, 17 days. In the African American community, 6 hours. We don't do business with one another, we don't save enough, and we spend too much of our assets on wasting assets. Cars, furs, jewelry, things that don't appreciate, like businesses, stocks, real estate, real hard assets.
So we're going to say, unfortunately, goodbye to my friend Dr. Kimbro, but before we do that, and I want us all to give him some love and some applause, we got Comerica Bank as our sponsor here today. I think that it's great that a bank is sponsoring this program, but there should be banks tripping over themselves to sponsor $1 trillion in buying power, but they need to get the memo that we are not just spenders, we are savers, that we're good investments, we have higher credit scores, we're a bankable commodity.
Exactly.
Thank you, Dr. Kimbro. Give him some love.
Yes.
We'll be back. We'll be back. So I mentioned before the break that Comerica was a sponsor for the program. I'm curious why you guys did this. I love it. I can't tell who's from Comerica Bank. It's all black people. Wouldn't Dr. King be proud? Wouldn't Coretta Scott King and Dr. King be proud? I don't know which black person to point to. All y'all look rich. Any one of. So Angelo, let's get serious for a minute. One, why'd you do this? And number two, talk to me about investing in women. I happen to believe that this is going to be the decade of the women, but talk to me about female entrepreneurs, black of color, and what they mean as a future investment for you. But first of all, once again, why do this program?
Well, one of the reasons we did this program because we feel that as a bank that the people of color matter. And there are viable solutions out there for them. So we want to educate them or educate the people of color in the community.
You want some more customers.
Exactly.
Who pay their bills.
Exactly.
I can say it. You want some people who pay their bills. And that's, you want to do well and do good.
Absolutely.
So tell me about women. Why invest in women of color, like this bad sister over here?
Absolutely. Well, we're very interested in women of color because, again, those are the individuals that we want inside our portfolio. Women of color, women in general, are the fastest growing segment of the wealth community.
Can you say that again? Hold the mic a little closer. Repeat that.
Women in general are the fastest growing segment of the wealth community. And women of color, business owners, are the fastest growing business segment of entrepreneurs. So we at Comerica, at least in our side of our wealth management area, really looked at this opportunity as an opportunity to educate in regards to helping women business owners move forward. And the first thing you really want to do for a women business owner, like any business owner, is establish a wealth plan. Very important to have a plan. You wouldn't build your house without developing a plan to build that house. So it all starts there from that standpoint. Things like understanding when to keep money in your business and pull money out of your business. Things along those lines. Having an estate plan developed. All these type of things is extremely important. But what really can help women of color is we're partnering right now with the Women of Color Entrepreneurial Circle. As a matter of fact, Joni Thrower is one of the co-chairs of this segment. So we are really working hard to establish and put forth the best foot for women of color.
I want to thank you for investing in not just black women, but investing in America. We're going to finish up. We'll come right back.
John Hope Bryant is a global businessman, best-selling author, philanthropist, and the founder, chairman, and CEO of Operation Hope and Bryant Group Ventures. Bryant has been an advisor to the last 3 sitting U.S. presidents. Since his appointment in 2010, Bryant has served on President Obama's Advisory Council for Financial Capability. Through Operation Hope and its partners, Bryant is responsible for more than $2 billion of private capital supporting low-wealth homeownership, small businesses, entrepreneurship, and community development investments in underserved communities across the U.S., and empowered more than 2.6 million individuals. Operation Hope manages partnerships in more than 400 U.S. cities, South Africa, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates.
So we're having a bunch of fun here. We're celebrating Black History Month here at Detroit PBS. Thank you guys for doing this, by the way. We just had a fascinating conversation with our friend from Comerica. Dr. King would be proud to see green money painted black. And really why he wants to invest, why they want to invest in black female entrepreneurs. You know, you see all these narratives about supposedly black female and negative this and that, and people don't realize the number one group of book purchasers are black females.
That's right.
The biggest group of small business creators are black females. At a time when we have more small business deaths in America than small business births. Dr. Kimbro, who's still with us, thank God, he knows this better than I do, but every big business was once a small one. And what we need to realize, and I hope this really inspires the people who are watching this, is, you know, if you can't get a job, create a job. And all wealth came from either war, crime, government contracting, or poor people. Because Walmart was Sam Walton with a pickup truck and a storefront. And UPS was Jim Casey with $100 and a bicycle. I'm sure Comerica was just some little immigrant entrepreneur years ago. I mean, all these companies were started with just some poor person with a big dream. Your firm, Oppenheimer, I'm sure you came from a modest background. Let's talk about up from nothing, right? In which you can, and capital inside of yourself and doing for yourself. And what role did role modeling? I mean, I keep saying you hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th.
That's right. That's right.
So you can love Cousin Boo Boo, but you should not follow his example. My mother didn't hang around no broke people. She was allergic to broke people. That's why she divorced my father. Anyway, but let's just open this up. Gail, what do you?
You know what? And I think women are strategic, and we're born that way.
Yeah.
So with everything that we do, when it comes to dealing with our money, when we want to start a business, we will have a plan to execute it. But you're right, role models are so important. So I think every person, not just women, but we tend to have like our own personal board of directors. Whether it's your parents, whether it's you had an accountant, a lawyer, you can't do everything. But we realize that women will ask for help. So we need our own personal board of directors. We need somebody to say, okay, here, help us with our taxes, help us with our building wealth plan, help us with our insurance needs, help us with our mortgage needs, help us. So, and then we have a life coach also. So we'll hire anybody in a heartbeat, a trainer, a personal trainer. So you need all those people in your board of directors. But the main thing is we can't run our home like a nonprofit. I think that's where we come into that. We
can't run your home like a nonprofit.
Right, because there's no grant money. That's that. Yeah, there's no grant money. But we do, and we're our own chief life officer.
Yeah.
So, but I know you talked about being poor, and African Americans, and a lot of women too. We're, poor just means really just passed over opportunity repeatedly. Yeah. So what we have to do is we're passed over all the time. So sometimes as women, we need to create our own. In the financial services industry, whether it's the McDonald's industry, franchise. It's mostly men who own those, who's in those industries. So we're looked over also. So that's why we have to be strategic and have a plan and have an execution. And this is how we get there.
I can't underscore this enough. I really think that women, this is going to be the decade of the women. We got a female Federal Reserve chairman. We got a female head of the IMF. We have a female head of the largest economy in Europe, which is Germany.
Might get a female president.
Hello.
We get that, yeah. We will. That's what I'm.
And when women start checking their husband's credit before they get married, we might have some marriages that work too. The number one cause of divorce is money, right?
It is.
So look, self-esteem, confidence. No, we never got the memo. It's not like we screwed it up. We just never got it in the first place. Is that resonating with you guys in the audience? Is that making sense to you? Dr. Kimbro, you introduced this issue of really non-financial capital in this conversation. I mean, is this what you were talking about? And do we need to build our own self-esteem, our own confidence in ourselves, and then our own businesses from the ground up? What did Van Jones, our friend, say? The best way to stop a bullet is a job. Is this important to the social movement?
I tell my students that money is not the bottom line. They say to me, Dr. Kimbro, you of all people, I said, no, money is not the bottom line. Love is.
Absolutely.
You love your you love your co-workers, you're going to make manager in no time. You love your job, you're going to get the parking space closest to the building. You love your customers, and you're going to get more customers. But take that issue of love further. What do you love to do? What do you have a passion for? Those are the critical questions before you start a business. We need people who are bold enough. We need people who are courageous enough. We need men and women who are audacious enough to sign their name on the front of a paycheck as well as the back. And it starts with knowing your area of excellence. The biggest mistake you will ever make in life is to think that you aren't president of your own corporation. And one of the things about entrepreneurship, and I like what you said about capitalism, but capitalism without capital is just another ism, as my friend George Fraser says. And it starts with the mind. I didn't choose to be here, John, and you didn't choose to be here, and all your viewing audience didn't choose to be here. The bottom line, we were chosen.
That's right.
So what have you been sent here to do?
That's right.
And you've heard it a million times before. A career is what you're paid for, but a calling is what you're made for.
Amen.
Well, what is it you want to do? What do you have a passion for? What can you throw your whole heart and soul into?
We got some church
As I
in here
tell my
tonight.
students in Atlanta, find your area of excellence. Because when you are doing what you love to do, when you are doing what you would do for free, you never have to worry about income and you never have to worry about employment because the marketplace will seek you out. And that is part and parcel of the whole concept of entrepreneurship. And the definition that Harvard uses, Harvard Business School of Entrepreneurship, is pursuit of an opportunity without any regard to the resources at hand.
So Dr. Kimbro, I don't want to give our listening audience, our viewing audiences a pass, and they say, well, I'm not an entrepreneur. That's not true. If you're running a household, you're CEO of that household, you got too much money at the end of your money. Hello, can I get an amen?
Amen.
Whether you're white, black, red, brown, or yellow, you want to see some more green.
Yes.
If you're making $100,000 a year, you can still be broke. So this is not about so-called poor people. This is about all of us getting the memo and getting it right, and that starts with loving yourself first.
Exactly.
Because half of success is confidence.
Exactly.
You look at what's consistent about everybody on this panel. Dr. Kimbro, confidence and self-esteem. And if we don't have self-esteem, we fake it. But if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. You're not going to invest in yourself. I would invest in her just because I look at her and I can see that somebody told her growing up, I love you. And if she believes in her, I'm going to believe in her. So this is not just about the numbers. It's about how you present yourself. And we got to stop. We got to reject victimization. We are nobody's victim. We are victors. And that's really what he was saying. And whether you're running a household or a business, there's a place and a space for you to grow. Mike, what we getting an amen from you here, Mike?
No, definitely you get an amen. As a matter of fact, my peers here, Comerica, they in this city sponsor a contest called the Hatch Award. And my daughter, who came from his college, she's an alumnus of Clark in Atlanta, lived in New York, came back to Detroit, and entered this contest for 170 other people, and she won $50,000 to start her own brick and mortar business.
Nice.
And she learned that, like she said, from watching other people around her in my family. My mother was an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. She's inspiring others to be an entrepreneur. So women are the driving force in our community to take us to the next level in economic development.
Joni, do you think, I'm going to go to the audience for a minute here too, but Joni, do you think, I've been talking a lot about that we can solve all of our social problems if we get our economic house in order, if we create jobs and opportunity. I mean, 700 credit score communities don't riot. Middle-class neighborhoods don't riot.
That's right.
Middle-class folks want to go shopping. And in that way, black folks resemble everybody else in the way we behave. Is it dreaming that if we had 1,000 U's in Detroit, a lot of our problems would go away? And is it dreaming that we could produce 1,000 U's in a Detroit? Well, you don't need my mic.
So I don't think it's dreaming because when you have the foundation, the proper foundation, there's really, no telling how far you can go. And because I was given the proper foundation within my family and the self-esteem that you talk about, that was something that I felt growing up and that I was taught growing up, I was able to succeed. And you can't stop there. So one of the things that my parents talk about is not just creating wealth for us and not just our children, but they constantly say your children's children.
That's right.
And so that means that it's not just that one generation, because that's one of the problems, I think, in our community.
Amen.
We're not taking that thought process further. And once we take that thought process that much further, we can begin to pull up everybody around us.
Yeah.
So that is not dreaming.
Yeah. And so I'm gonna go to the audience, but I think what I heard you say without saying is we gotta not just be concerned about cashing checks, but writing checks.
Amen.
Big difference.
Big difference.
Dr. Kimbro sort of alluded to that. Once you write some checks, don't just be concerned about who's the ball player, who owns a ball team, right? And so she's an owner, but everybody here has an ownership mentality. I'm gonna test the audience. What if I said this? If I don't like me, I'm not gonna like you. If I don't feel good about me, I'm not gonna feel good about you. If I don't respect me, you can't expect me to respect you. If I don't love me, I'm not gonna love you. And if I don't have a purpose in my life, I'm gonna make your life a living, whatever goes around.
Comes around.
So is our living legacy really, is our new capital within reach of every black person? You don't need to have the net worth that her family had. You don't need to have the education that my friend here had. Can you start from any place?
Yes.
And build? Just again, I didn't ask you this beforehand. Just tell me what's on your mind. Tell America what's on your mind. Somebody volunteer, I'm gonna put the mic in your face. Yes, stand up.
Hi, I'm Jeanette Abraham. I'm an entrepreneur from a father who only had an 8th grade education, who stressed education to his 4 daughters who have master's degrees, who made us believe that you can do anything that you want to do and get something that nobody can ever take away from you, reminded us of our responsibility. And on top of that, the faith level, that because I can, it became my motto. I think that I can. And as you're talking about women and raising up women in this new millennium, we're going to be superstars if the door could just open for us.
Yes. Yes.
And I appreciate the fact that Comerica thinks about us that way, because it gives us a living chance to be successful.
Absolutely. And as much as I appreciate Comerica doing this, I hope that the next shows have a lot of competition, that they're basically squeezing them out, trying to get in the door, because that means that we are a marketable investment. Anybody else have? Yes.
Hello. I'm Lisa from Talmer Bank, and Talmer also has a really big interest in women entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs, period. And that's why we also felt it was important to sponsor this as well. One of the examples that I have is that raising my daughters. I have 2 daughters. And one of my daughters wanted to be a chef. So she's in culinary school right now. But when she was about the age of 14 or 15, she opened a business. She opened up a sweets business, and she found several customers. One was within the bank and a few other organizations that wanted to purchase treats from her. And what we ended up teaching her was profit and loss. So she would see that she would get the orders, she would take in the dollars, and then I would take her to the grocery store. You need to buy your supply. So let me teach you what is profit, what is loss. This is what you're going to make at the end of the day after you deduct all your losses. And from that, she could see that she couldn't always depend on the dollars that came in to build her bank account. She had to look at the dollars that came in, subtract the hours of labor, subtracted the dollars that it took to buy the supplies, and then the bottom line was what she would have after she finished her order for the customer. And how much she put in the bank, I also taught her, you put in 10%. Because you always have to pay yourself first. So I've seen a big difference in her. She's now in college. She's now in New York at culinary school. But she doesn't have a problem saving. She doesn't have a problem believing in herself that she can be an owner, that she can be a chef. So I do believe it starts at home. And I do believe that women are the new entrepreneurs. And I do believe this is going to be the decade of the women, because we have found a voice and we have found a way to create personal wealth.
So I want to thank Talmer for also being a sponsor today. I don't think that Michael and I may disagree with you a bit. I'm going to go on a limb here. We both heard you. I don't think that the greatest thing your daughter learned or got was profit and loss. I think, and Michael, you correct me if I'm wrong here, there's an old Southern saying, watch how you live your life. It may be the only Bible that anybody else reads. Unconsciously, your daughter saw a role model. She saw a professional with a suit on, with a business card. You know, my own goddaughter, Kirsten Fouché, I brought her into my office as an intern. And she was upset with me because she said, look, I'm 20 years old. I'm now doing an internship. You never invited me in your office. I presumed and assumed she had always had this experience. Nobody in her family had a business card. Nobody in her family had been on a salary. All her family had been basically hourly, honorable professions, but she'd never been in an office before. Wow. It's amazing, right? And so now your daughter knows people who have business cards, knows people who have a salary. One of them is her mother. If you don't think that affects her self-esteem, her self-image, I mean, you are a living example of that, Joni. I mean, you basically saw it and you did it. I mean, why do I wear a suit? My daddy did. I mean, I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm role modeling. Why did I love myself? My mother told me to. Yeah. So, why don't you, Gail, because to me you're a nexus point with all this. You're part investor, you're part owner, you're like Dr. Kimbro, you're very inspirational. You are unapologetically black, but you're not black for a living. That's right. You're just competent and you can hit it at all levels.
We got to keep our budget in the black.
Amen.
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 Yeah, it's Black History Month. We don't want to make our money history.
Okay.
Yeah. But what the thing is, I teach, youth for the last 21 years is what I have. I haven't had a vacation, so I take my vacation every year, and I take 200 youth in the city of Detroit. And people come from all over now. And I teach them financial literacy. And we start with, I divide up the kids, small cap, mid cap, and large cap kids. And we have, elementary school, high school, and middle school. Yep. And we take them, and they actually get a paycheck, and they learn how to, get a mortgage. They learn how to play golf. Most business deals are made on the golf course. They learn ballroom dancing lessons. They learn how to stand up straight. They have fencing lessons. Wow. So they learn everything but they all get a paycheck. And I had one guy had a firefighter, gave him 5 kids, and he had to buy a mortgage, got a car, do everything. And by the end of the week, you make money depending on how much money you saved. And we had the 10-10-80 rule. Save 10%, give 10%, and live off of 80%. Well, anyway, this kid had a ton of money left over. And I said, what'd you do? He said, I sold all my kids on eBay on Tuesday.
He sold his kids?
Yeah, he sold his kids. But the deal was, the thing was, what he did was, but he figured out kids take all your money. And the thing is, they do. So,
that's literally true.
I know we do. But we do teach our kids how to turn their passion into their payment. They put on 3-on-3 basketball tournaments. They can make $2,500 in a day. They learn how to sell day-old baked goods like they're brand new, like they just were baked. And they do different things. It's all in the marketing. But just like Dennis Kimbro said, we use, money as a tool only. It's all about love. It's about loving yourself and finding the value in yourself first. So every morning when the kids come in, they have to say, what's valuable about myself? And then that's how they learn each other. They don't learn each other's names. They learn what's valuable about that person. Yeah. And that's where they can turn their passion into their payment.
So I'm gonna embarrass you a little bit when we come back, because
oh, what? Okay.
No, you've taken your son to Japan, right?
Yes.
You've in other words, you have gotten out of this box of I'm just in Detroit, or I'm just in DC. You have reimagined who you are, and you've exposed your child to another world, and I think that has built wealth in your child. It also built a relationship with your child, and you created a role model of who a real black woman can be. And I think that Dr. Dennis Kimbro, once again, can sort of amplify or help us sort of bring this around full circle. So Dr. Kimbro, coming back to you, why don't you pivot off some of the themes you've heard from the audience and from our friend here?
Well, Booker T. Washington said years ago, start where you are with what you have, knowing that what you have is plenty enough. I had a great interview with Bishop T.D. Jakes down in the Potter's House, and I'm in his book line study, reading every book on God's green earth, John, that you'd ever want to read, study, or examine in your life. And bam, all of a sudden he steps in, and I said, Bishop, I'm not getting on the plane and flying back to Atlanta if we talk about wealth and success. And he said, that's very easy. He says, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. But show him how he can buy the pond and no one in his family will ever know struggle.
That's right.
Well, this whole process about entrepreneurship and about wealth creation, yes, it's about businesses and it's about team building. It's about the 5 phases of entrepreneurship. But you've got to mentally know that, hey, I am capable of buying a pond, and it's all about exposure. If a child sees that, if your next door neighbor sees that, then it's going to raise his or her self-consciousness. I remember when I was watching TV and I saw Malcolm Gladwell, and I have all of Gladwell's books, and he was being interviewed on TV. And John, before the host cut it off, he said, Malcolm, before we end our conversation, is there any trend on the horizon that has you concerned? And Gladwell stroked his face and he says, yes, there is something. He says, well, we'll share it with our viewing audience. And Gladwell says, I'm concerned about the hundreds of thousands of black kids. And then he changed the number. He says, no, let's make that millions of black kids who live in neighborhoods and go to school every day in which they will never see a black man in a suit and tie. Until we raise our consciousness of what is capable and what we could do. And John, I don't even care if you have a cell phone. If you got an Android or you got an Apple phone and you got internet access, get the big picture. If you have internet access, as soon as you go online, there are minimum 2 to 3 billion people online with you. Now you can use that audience of 2 to 3 billion to share your ideas, share your product and service. You're looking for a job, attach your resume. Or you can use that audience of 2 to 3 billion to gossip. Now, I have no problem with that.
I do.
But you got to recognize that Jesse Jackson says you're responsible for you. You may not be responsible for getting knocked down, but you're certainly responsible for getting back up. And getting back up is mental more than it is physical.
So what I think the theme is sort of growing through this conversation, and we're gonna hark back a little bit to our history and then go forward, because we pivoted off of Gail and I mentioned that she took her son to Japan, and it was on Facebook, and it was they make a big deal about it, but they made it normal. Going to Japan, black, normal. Owning, normal. Being a franchise owner, normal. Working in financial services, normal. Being a banker who happens to be black, normal. We need to make being outstanding normal. Ryan Mack here runs my Operation Hope office in a couple states, and His whole family is a family committed, addicted to excellence. They've made excellence normal. It's not K through 12, it's K through college. That's a presumption in Ryan Mack's family. So I wonder whether we can redefine poverty around non-economic lines. Because if I give a homeless guy $1 million, he'll be broke in 6 months. And nothing changes here, nothing changes here. Exactly. So we've got to get out of this victim mentality. We've got to stop assuming we cannot do this. We got to reimagine our storyline. We got to understand that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said in 1968, you cannot legislate goodness in America. You cannot pass a law to force someone to respect you. The only way to social justice in a capitalist country is economics and ownership. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said that in 1968. Wow. And then he was killed before the Poor People's Campaign ever got off the ground. And then Andrew Young said, we integrated the lunch counter, we never integrated the dollar. I'm continuing to think that our problems lie as a society, as a community, in not solving this big issue called not the wealth gap, but self-love leading to wealth creation. Whether you're a homeowner, you need self-love and you need to have wealth creation. That means being a role model for your daughter. The book, The Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell wrote this book that Kimbro mentioned. It said that 5% of role models every community stabilizes. Not 80% role models, not 50, not 20, not 10, 5% role models in every community stabilizes. Now you're modeling what you see. So as we begin to bring this home, and I'm going to again go around again for a round of questions and hopefully have time to come to the audience, I'm being a little provocative here. Quincy Jones says it takes 20 years to change a culture. In the last 20 years, I'd argue we've made dumb sexy. We've dumbed down and celebrated it. And now we've got to make smart sexy again. Because we used to wear suits back in the early 20s. No matter what you did, you walked in, you were suited and booted. So we can do it again, and we can combine that with this new self-love and this wealth and the memo on money. I think nothing can stop us, but we got to simplify our message and upgrade our software and stop marching just in the streets and start marching in the suites.
That's right, yeah.
Michael, you first.
Well, you know, one of the first things I come back to, we have to learn to live within our means. You know, we have to quit being the victim consumers or victims of every other community selling every other product. And then we have to spend our dollars within our own community to build wealth so that we can circulate those dollars among businesswomen like John. I mean, all of us, we want to do business with each other. And as long as we keep spending our dollars elsewhere, we retard our economic development.
So Mike, on your point, I'm in Uganda. And the people talk about black power, black power. On the way to the airport, we find this pass by this Chinese guy selling fruits and vegetables on the street corner. Right. So I asked the people, I said, what's wrong with you people? My black host, right. What's wrong with you people? You sit there talking about black power. Wait a minute, don't be mad at this dude. He came from 8,000 miles away to a country he didn't know and a language he didn't understand. Exactly. He found some soil, he found a street corner. He planted soil and he planted seeds in your soil. He grew your fruits and vegetables. Now he cultivated now he's selling you your own fruits and vegetables back to you on your street corner, and you don't even notice it. They hadn't even thought about it.
Right. That's part of our mentality. We don't think about ownership, being owners, being in charge of our own destiny. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Those are strange words in our community of people.
Here's another strange one. You're in the city of Detroit, across the street from Canada.
Yes.
And people selling land for $1,000 a house. What are you waiting for? We spend $1,000 on a bad purse, on some Louis Vuitton. I can't say that on TV, but the not real stuff. And you can buy a house for $1,000. That's land. They're not growing any more land. We got to reimagine our thinking. You know, McDonald's is as much in the real estate business as it is in the other business.
They are.
Either one of you want to sort of riff on this topic?
You know, I think comes to our self-love. I mean, it is. And we have to start acting our wage. And not just, you know, it's not about approval.
Acting our wage, not our age.
Yeah, we got to act our wage. So
there's a tweet for the night.
So, but the thing is, we have to, we have to look at, where, not just look at, we get approved. We go buy a car and it's just like, oh my God, we got so excited, we got approved. The interest rate is so high that we can't afford the note, and it's like paying interest is not in our best interest. And we don't look at, we pay the highest interest rates. So our credit score is so low, most of our money goes to interest. And so that's not, we have to change our mindset. Well, how much should I get approved for? What's the interest rate? We have to start asking questions.
That's right.
Arming ourselves with knowledge.
And
That's
pulling
what we
your
need
credit
to-
score.
And pulling your credit score.
Yeah.
Before, back when we first met somebody back in the day, you say, what's your sign? Now
Now
it's
it's like,
like,
what's your credit score?
I know. It's like, what's your
First
credit
date,
score?
first
I know.
date, what's your
First
credit
date,
score?
What's your credit score? See if we can get along. What's the number? It's like numbers, but numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
So we got to look at what are our numbers. So we need to know that.
So, Joni, you want to help us bring this home?
Yes. So what I would tell young people that are interested in becoming entrepreneurs, what I would tell them is get an internship, whether it's paid or not, in the industry that they want to go into. Figure it out.
Yeah.
Let on someone else's dime.
Yeah.
Someone gave me that advice before, and you figure it out on someone else's dime.
That's right.
And then you go out and do it for yourself.
So we're gonna bring this home, and I'm gonna give you the audience a challenge here. We're gonna make this the most provocative, powerful PBS show ever. Yes, we want your 9 to 5 to financial 5 to 9. So if you have an entrepreneurial dream, pursue it and let your job finance the creation of your first business. But if you have a job, then go get a kid in your neighborhood as an intern. Let them come in for 5 weeks, 6 weeks. We have a program at Operation Hope, but you can go to any program you want. I don't care, junior achievement, National Urban League, NAACP. There's enough poverty to go around. We need everybody in this fight. And we want you to bring that kid into your environment, because that's how you're going to literally change their life. Because in 6 weeks of that kid being in your office, the office will change the kid.
No question.
And the kid will change the office. And now that kid has a relationship with the free enterprise system. They know somebody who's got a business card, and they're now got a new role model that they can model. And you know what? Once we do that plus understanding we've been talking about here, the language of money, you really are setting people free.
Exactly.
Love you guys. I hope you've enjoyed this special time together. I want to thank the producers and PBS and all that made this possible. And I want to thank our panelists. Please give them a round of applause, along with my friend, Dr. Kimbro. Be a hero or a shero in your neighborhood. Make a difference. Don't just be a PhD, be a PhD too. Don't just focus on civil rights, focus on civil rights. Or as my friend Dr. Dorothy Height would say, the late Dr. Dorothy Height, be a dreamer with a shovel in your hand. Let's close the wealth gap by starting by enriching the love gap. Good night.